This is the week ahead. We're recording this interview on site, on location at Blue Dome Mines here in Sri Kembangan. My name is Ibrahim Sani. We're going to be walking through some of the key events and key ideas that is going to take place in the week ahead. And of course, we're talking about the week of 15th May running all the way until 21st of May. But before we jump into what's happening next week, we have to do a quick recap into what happened last week. The Prime Minister visited the Washington DC delegates, and of course he also went to London to discuss some key important meetings, and of course we saw some announcements coming in last week pertaining to the OPR rate hike, where the central bank raised the OPR by 25 basis points to 2.00%. Now, we were at 1.75% for the longest of time. That is the record lowest that we've had in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. But because of the idea of trying to cool down the economy, the Bank Negara has decided to raise the OPR by 25 basis points. Some analysts surveyed by Bloomberg prior to the hike, 14 of them at least, do not believe that Bank Negara would raise the hike, but it seems like they all got it wrong, simply put. We've gotten a lot of conversations out on this, particularly when it comes to what it means for investors and how they are priced in. So this is my conversation with Wahid Invest Country Director on the issue on Niaga Awani. Take a look. Let's do a quick take into what your initial reactions would be following this rate hike.
Sure. So the early rate hike was a surprise move by Bank Negara Malaysia, but it was not a huge surprise. In the recent Reuters poll, 4 out of 18 economists did predict a rate hike as early as yesterday due to concerns that widening interest rate differential with the US Federal Reserve and some regional peers may worsen ringgit's performance and subsequently drive inflation higher. So the decision to increase interest rate yesterday was a preemptive move by the Bank Negara Malaysia to be ahead of the curve and prevent further inflationary pressures. So currently the headline inflation for Malaysia is at 2.2%, and we are still seeing an upside risk coming from the rise in commodity prices, strained supply chains, as well as strong demand conditions, particularly in the US.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point out the commodity prices. Quick news on that, because The Edge reported that Indonesia's flip-flop does give Malaysia an advantage in top of the palm oil market in India. But commodities aside, I want to look at how investors are behaving in this. My question, of course, is on how investors, whether or not they've priced in the hike, and how will they move ahead in the next quarter?
We think investors have partly priced in the early hike by BNM, given the fact that the Federal Reserve, the decision by the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates in April did move the regional stock markets lower, with the expectation for other central banks to follow suit heightened. But yesterday, we saw selected sectors such as financials closing higher, suggesting that BNM's decision to hike interest rates still had an impact on the local market.
The expectation, of course, is on how regional markets are going to behave moving forward, not because of the OPR, but generally speaking, central banks around the world, from the US Fed all the way to BOE, have raised their interest rates in tandem. What would be expected then is that from the markets following this hike, and do you think that this is a good measure in a way to control inflation?
So naturally, an early hike like this, some sectors will benefit from a higher interest rate environment. So you'll see financial sector is expected to trend higher on expectation of higher net interest margin. We are also currently seeing sustained commodity rally driven by geopolitical concerns that is expected to continue to support inflow into the plantation sector. But overall, I think the local as well as the regional markets are still expected to take cue from future monetary policy decisions by the Federal Reserve. And we are still seeing other downside risks that include foreign outflow from the local stock and bond markets, as well as weaker than expected Malaysian economy and macro data, as well as any disappointment in company earnings going forward.
Thank you very much. That was Izzat Fadli, Country Director, Wahid Invest, making a quick call with us in the morning. We're going on a short break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing Felda's wholly owned unit, FIC Properties Nambahat, that has exercised its put option to sell a 37% stake in loss-making PT Eagle High Plantation back to the Rajawali Group. Of course, the option entails either PT Rajawali Capital International or PT Rajawali Corpora buying back the 37% stake in Eagle High that was sold to FICP or FIC Properties for about 500 million US, or just a touch above 2.2 billion ringgit, with a 6% interest per annum starting from May 11th, 2017 to the date of full payment. That is coming up after the break. We'll be right back after these messages. So those are the kind of coverages that we provide for you on our sister show, Niaga Awani, where a lot of these ideas and items are being discussed. Do catch us live from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with a repeat at 11, or you can watch us on all our social sites as well as on YouTube. Just type Niaga Awani. Now, of course, we move on to the next item of the day, which is what's coming up next for the week of 15th of May or 16th of May. One key idea is, of course, on the May 19th, balance of trade is going to be announced. Imports and exports for month of April is going to be presented. These are the kind of data that would complement the GDP first quarter announcement that was made by the government last week on Friday the 13th. We've also seen some numbers, particularly when it comes to inflation numbers, all those kind of items that will tie in with the balance of trade numbers as well. One key idea to focus on when it comes to balance of trade is our relationship on our biggest trading partner, which is China. Because China, of course, is facing an economic slowdown. So now the question is whether or not this is going to impact our trade even further. Also happening next week is the Pkr elections, party elections. But those are the kind of ideas that we need to talk about after the break. We'll come back after these messages. Welcome back. This is The Week Ahead. My name is Ibrahim Sani. We're doing this show on location at Blue Dome Mines. The Pkr party elections will conclude following the very long drawn affair of the party's way of doing things, which is to elect its new representatives to its body, to its governing body. The Pkr convention stretches from May 13th all the way until May 23rd or 22nd. In it, we've seen a few contenders, particularly those that are vying for the chief, the head of AMK, the debate that was done on Astro AWANI. I want you to take a look into the debate that we had.
Sebagai sebuah angkatan muda keadilan, iaitu sayap pemuda bagi parti yang kita bertanggungjawabkan dalam menyelesaikan masalah rakyat ini, ia harus jadi sebuah sayap yang paling kuat. Harus jadi sebuah sayap yang paling progresif, yang paling berani dan juga yang paling penting mampu untuk mendepani masyarakat daripada desa ke bandar, daripada kota ke kampung. Menawarkan diri sebagai Ketua Angkatan Muda Keadilan bukanlah sebuah usaha untuk mengejar kedudukan ataupun jawatan. Sebaliknya, ia datang dengan tanggungjawab yang sangat besar. Kita menggalas tanggungjawab untuk menzahirkan apa yang kita sebut tadi sebagai tanggungjawab sebuah parti progresif untuk mengeluarkan rakyat daripada kemelut ini. Dan sebab itu saya kira dengan pengalaman yang saya pernah kutip, ya, sebenarnya lebih 10 tahun bergelumang dalam dunia aktivisme politik, baik daripada gerakan mahasiswa sampai ke gerakan sosial, daripada gerakan masyarakat sehinggalah ke gerakan berorganisasi. Pengalaman-pengalaman ini membentuk satu tekad bahawa kita perlukan sebuah wadah politik. Saya memerlukan sebuah wadah politik yang mana ia boleh sampai kepada akar sistem tersebut. Inilah antara tujuan penting saya merasakan bahawa sumbangan ini boleh saya kongsi kepada Parti Keadilan Rakyat dalam perjuangan untuk mengeluarkan rakyat daripada kemelut hari ini. Tentu sekali ia bukanlah sebuah perjalanan yang mudah. Saya datang sebagai pendatang baru. Saudara fahami, kita panggil sebagai seorang incumbent yang lebih berpengalaman. Tapi pengalaman berada dalam dunia aktivisme ini dan datang pula sebagai seorang pendatang baru sebenarnya adalah satu kelebihan juga. Artinya saya membawa sebuah pandangan, sudut pandang yang lebih segar. Duduk bersama dengan masyarakat, merasai apa yang masyarakat lalui sendiri dan tidak mempunyai, sekurang-kurangnya tidak mempunyai beban-beban politik yang boleh orang kata mencalarkan pandangan dan juga perjuangan yang akan datang.
5.8 juta pengundi berumur 18 tahun. Dan kalau kita tengok bahawa peningkatan setiap bulan 50,000 ke 60,000 pengundi anak muda ini sedikit sebanyak memberi ruang kepada saya memberi orang kata satu jalan untuk menawarkan trust kepada AMK kita. Kali ini kawan-kawan dan juga saya akan membawa satu suara akaumbi di mana kita mahu pendekatan yang lebih mampan. Kita akan memastikan bahawa golongan-golongan undi 18 ini dididik di mana mereka ni penting dalam sektor partisipasi dalam politik. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, kita lihat selain daripada itu, perjuangan asas seperti gigs ekonomi, peluang pendidikan yang lebih baik, kebolehpasaran dan juga kos sara hidup golongan muda ni akan disuarakan oleh pasukan saya sendiri. Yang saya buat sepanjang pemilihan ini, saya dan kawan-kawan turun ke seluruh negara melihat, mengambil suara anak-anak muda khususnya dari peringkat AMK itu sendiri. Daripada kutipan suara ini, insya-Allah sekiranya saya menang dalam AMK Malaysia, perkara yang sama juga saya akan buat untuk di peringkat seluruh Malaysia. Mengambil suara dan juga memperjuangkan suara khususnya orang-orang undi 18. Itu yang pertama, tuan. Yang kedua, meningkatkan partisipasi golongan muda khususnya AMK dalam pilihan raya ke-15. Sebagai contoh, perubahan berlaku zaman saudara Nik Nazmi dan juga saudara Akmal Nasir. Sebagai contoh, saya sebagai pengarah pilihan raya AMK Malaysia. Peningkatan jumlah calon AMK itu sendiri meningkat 2 orang daripada 7 kepada 9. Ini nampaknya perubahan berlaku zaman demi zaman. So, di peringkat saya ni memohon agar di peringkat kita ni memberi ruang kepada calon-calon anak muda. Bukan hanya di peringkat kerajaan tempatan maupun peringkat kerajaan negeri, kita mahu mereka letak anak muda, calon anak muda di kursi-kursi yang lebih baik.
You can watch the full debate on astroawani.com. It's actually a good debate between the two contenders, Fahmi Zainul as well as Adam Adli. They both have had a very storied past when it comes to being a reformist, being a student activist. Both of them do have strong caliber in terms of how it's being done to get the rally of the youth or the support of the young. Another debate that was done that is worth noting is the debate between the current Secretary General of Pkr, Dato Sri Saifuri Nasution, as well as the former Vice President of Pkr, Rafizi Ramli. The debate did have some flashpoints. Take a look.
Saya yakin saya dan rakan saya Rafizi committed dengan agenda reform. Kami berkongsi idealisme perjuangan yang sama. Kami memilih platform parti yang sama, parti multiracial, yang terasnya inklusif dan kepelbagaian dengan jaminan keadilan untuk semua. Kalau parti ini tampilkan polisinya sangat pro rakyat. Parti ini sangat anti rasuah. Parti ini tegas impikan satu prinsip tata kelola atau good governance. Parti ini juga tegar dalam mempertahankan prinsip-prinsip yang disepakati dalam perlembagaan, bersabit tentang peranan institusi raja-raja, Islam sebagai agama persekutuan, perkara 153 kedudukan istimewa Melayu Bumi Putra Sabah Sarawak dan juga kedudukan bahasa Melayu seperti mana yang termaktub dalam perlembagaan. Saya yakin dan saya penuh sedar kedua-dua kami sangat menjunjung nilai-nilai demokrasi dan komited dalam memperjuangkan agenda reform. Dengan panduan itu, saya berpendapat bahawa pemilihan Parti Keadilan ini adalah sekadar satu proses untuk memulangkan kembali hak mandat demokrasi kepada anggota parti untuk membuat keputusan yang akhirnya akan mengisi kekosongan jawatan-jawatan dalam parti yang kosong sejak Februari tahun 2020 akibat peristiwa pengkhianatan Sheraton Move. Ia adalah sebagai menghormati dan memulangkan kembali mandat demokrasi kepada anggota parti untuk memilih. Saya sedar bahawa audiens petang ini ada dua. Satu, awam. Yang kedua, anggota parti. Saya memilih bahawa fokus saya adalah anggota parti yang akan mengundi mulai 13 Mei sehingga 22 Mei nanti. Saya yakin di tangan mereka lah yang akan membuat keputusan.
Negara kita sedang berdepan dengan pelbagai masalah-masalah yang besar yang kita telah warisi sejak berdekad. Masalah-masalah ini telah menjadi satu masalah struktur. Kita berdepan dengan masalah struktur ekonomi yang mana nilai ekonomi yang kita jana setakat ini tidak lagi mampu untuk menyediakan peluang pekerjaan yang membayar pada gaji yang setimpal kepada anak-anak muda yang keluar daripada pusat-pusat pendidikan. Kita berdepan dengan masalah meruncing, iaitu perbekalan makanan yang terlalu banyak bergantung kepada import luar negara, dan apabila keadaan ekonomi kita tidak kukuh, itu menyebabkan kita terdedah kepada kenaikan harga barang yang mendadak seperti yang kita alami kebelakangan ini. Kita juga ada banyak masalah-masalah lain yang akhirnya menyebabkan rakyat biasa terbeban dan menanggung. Jadi sebab itu harapan rakyat sejak beberapa tahun yang lalu ialah untuk melihat percambahan idea dari kalangan pimpinan negara dari semua parti. Dan bukan sahaja idea tetapi kesungguhan untuk menyelesaikan masalah-masalah ini. Rakyat telah memainkan peranan mereka. Apabila pentadbiran Datuk Seri Najib terpalit dengan skandal 1MDB, rakyat membuat keputusan yang tidak pernah dibuat sebelum itu, iaitu menukar kerajaan buat kali pertama. Dan sejak berlakunya Sheraton Move, lebih 2 tahun yang lepas, ada tanggapan bahawa kepimpinan politik di negara ini, di semua parti, lebih sibuk mencatur untuk mendapatkan kedudukan dan kuasa daripada benar-benar bersaing untuk menyelesaikan masalah-masalah ini.
So those are the kind of items that is going to be of interest if you're looking into the political scene of Malaysia, especially if you're interested in the party politics of PKR. Worth noting that next week we are going to see some conversations when it comes to the anti-hopping law. This is, of course, to refresh everyone's memory, this is the law that involves the curtailment of MPs from jumping ships midway through a particular parliamentary session. There has been some attacks, I suppose, by the opposition MPs, particularly those from Pakatan Harapan, for making against the Home Minister, Dato Sri Hamzah, for making remarks against the law. In fact, if I can quote some of the statements that were given by the MPs, the DAP MP of Klang, Charles Santiago, says he was not surprised with Hamzah's stance and wondered if the latter's party president, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, agreed with him when Hamzah said that the anti-hopping law marks it as quite poor taste for the people. And of course, Dato Sri Hamzah says that the anti-hopping law may not necessarily be of the interest of the people. So the DAP MP Charles Santiago says that this goes against what the people want, quote unquote. A stable government, especially after the Sheraton move, and of course this is going to take place even further over the next week. We're going to see some MPs taking shots over one of the other. The anti-hopping law is scheduled to be tabled when the parliament sitting is opened in June. So because of that, there's a lot more items that is going to be debated on this front. So that's probably going to happen next week. And of course, we'll go for one more short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more about the World Economic Forum that's going to happen in Davos starting May 22nd. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is the week ahead. Of course, we're going to explore some more ideas onto what's going to happen next week. The biggest item that we can mention right now is, of course, the World Economic Forum that is taking place in Davos. The official annual meeting of Davos 2022 will take place between May 22nd up until May 26th. For Malaysia, some of our governmental relationships and governmental representatives are attending the meeting. One of them is, of course, the Finance Minister, Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Aziz. Astro AWANI will be covering Davos live, so do keep an eye out on our coverage there. The World Economic Forum is a platform where you discuss some of the key items that is affecting the macro trends of the globe, including the items of climate change, the items of addressing the rising political conflicts that is happening around the world, not least following the Russian-Ukraine war. And of course, the third item is, of course, on how the economies are reopening following the resolution or the abatement of the COVID-19 pandemic, and whether or not this will be officially declared as an endemic by the World Health Organization anytime soon. So these three, plus a lot of other ideas or macroeconomic ideas that is going to take place, all of them going to be debated at the World Economic Forum. So do keep an eye out on that. My colleague Najib Aruf, as well as Astro AWANI's Editor-in-Chief Ashwat Ismail, will be accompanying the Malaysian delegates to Davos, Switzerland, to cover some of the key moments that is happening there. So those are the kind of ideas that is going to take place in Davos, May 22nd. So do keep an eye out on our coverage. Finally, I want to talk a little bit more about some recent developments locally, because to refresh your memory, on April 29th, the Bank Negara Malaysia has announced the recipients of the digital banking licenses. So 3 digital banking licenses were awarded to conventional banking licenses, as well as 2 Islamic license for the digital banking license. In my conversation last week with Sedania Innovator founder and managing partner Dato Azrin, as well as the company per se within Sedania, that is Sedania As-Salam, the CEO Khairul Nisa Ismail, we discussed at length about some of the ideas when it comes to how to pull ahead when it's involving the digital banking licenses. Take a look into the conversation that we just had last week on this topic.
Well, thank you for having us, Ibrahim. I think we're equally very, very excited that finally 5 of the digital banking license was awarded. And we're doubly happy the fact that 2 of the recipients are already our partners / clients who's already enjoying using our platform. So super excited, super excited.
Okay, Nisa, let's talk a little bit more about how Sedania As-Salam is involved and who are these clients that we're speaking of?
As mentioned by Dato just now, we are very excited that few of our existing clients have got the digital banking license. One of is Eon. Eon has been our client for the last couple of years, and we are very excited that they managed to get this under the Islamic punya ni, Kewangan Islam 2013 IFSA, right? And that really pushes through the financial inclusion that we equivalently we want to help most of the customers out there to actually enjoy Islamic financing services, and we are very excited for Eon Credit for this.
And there you have it. So if you want to watch the whole interview, just head on to astro.com, look for Notepad. There's plenty of interviews like this that can be found there. But in particular, if you want to learn more about what we discussed at Sedania, there's a lot of resources that can be found there as well. So that's it for May 15th onwards. Remember, this show will target some of the key items or developments that's going to take place every week, every oncoming week. Now, we do recognize that there's a lot more that is going to take place next week, but these are the key items that perhaps we felt that would be of interest for you. If you want to learn more about all these kind of shows, just head on to astro.com, look for more resources there. My name is Ibrahim Sani. Catch you in the next one.